Hello, welcome to Outrunning UK. My name is Adam, and today we are going to cover training paces and race paces. What are they? How to work them out as an individual runner, and how they fit in relation to each other. So how fast is your 10k compared to your 5k compared to your half marathon? Something I had no knowledge of when I first started running. Hopefully it'll help new runners figure out what paces they should be running in relation to their training, so easy pace, threshold pace, etc. Let's dive straight in and cover the topic of training paces and race paces. Yeah, so this is a topic where there's not a lot of information out there. Obviously I can't disclose what your 5k pace should be or your 10k pace should be, but I can disclose some kind of rough rules of thumb in terms of if your 5k pace is X time, then your 10k pace is probably going to be roughly this, and your half marathon pace in relation to that should be roughly this. That's something I wasn't aware of, so when I started out running and I had my 5k time, my PB, how fast should my 10k pace be in relation to that? So yes, it's exactly twice the distance, but it can't be twice the time exactly. So yeah, so I'm going to dive into that. Feel free to flick through the chapters. I'll cover training paces, running on feel, and then I'll go through some places where you can look to help find out training paces, and then what I utilise to help me figure out what my race paces should be at the various distances. So let's get started. So yeah, so as I've got more and more experience as a runner, I've been able to figure out most of these questions I had. But again, there's still not a lot of information out there when someone says I'm going to run an easy pace run or a tempo pace run or a threshold pace run. So you as an individual watching now, if I asked you to go out now and do a threshold pace run, a lot of the newer runners wouldn't have a clue what that meant. Or if I said go out and do a 1k repeat session, so do 1k effort and then have a rest period, and if I said run that 1k at 5k pace or 10k pace, again, a lot of you, some might know what that means and some might not. So today we're going to cover all these questions, hopefully help those that aren't knowledgeable about these things become knowledgeable. So I'm just going to skim over the training paces. I've covered this a bit more in a bit more depth in different types of run vlog. Click on the link, I'll put it in the description as well. That covers like tempo runs, threshold runs, easy runs, and various other types, pyramids, progression. So in terms of paces for training, again, I tend to run on feel. So an easy pace run for most people is kind of a 4 or 5 out of 10 conversational pace. So apologies for the breathlessness in tonight's vlog. I'm running at a tempo which is above easy pace, so I'm getting a bit breathless when I talk for quite a long period. Yeah, go and watch that vlog. That covers it in a bit more detail than I'm going to cover tonight. Tonight's going to be focused more on race paces. How do you work them out if you're doing a 5 or 10 or half marathon for the first time, and people say stick to a consistent pace throughout the race. But what is that pace if you haven't done one before, or you've only done a handful? How would you figure that out? Yeah, so the main focus obviously is going to be race paces. So what is your 10k pace compared to your 5k pace? What should it be per mile or per k? And again, half marathon to 10k, again, what should the difference be? Is it seconds or what? I'll cover that in a sec. A couple of different ways of doing that. So there's a couple of different systems in place at the moment. Some people like to use the 2.1 to 2.2 multiplication method. So as you jump from 5 to 10, you just multiply your 5k time by 2.1 to 2.2, somewhere in that window. So 2.15, 2.17, depending on what you think is most accurate. It's a bit loose and a bit rough, but it is a system that can be used. A lot of people do use that as a rough estimate. So hypothetically, for simplicity of maths, if you ran your 5k in 30 minutes, for example, just makes my maths a bit easier, then you times that by 2.1, for example, which will give us 63 minutes as an estimate for our 10k. So 30 times 2 is 60. Add 10% onto the 30, which is 3 minutes. Give us 63 minutes as a rough estimate for a 10k. And then again, you do that again as you went up to the half marathon. 63 times 2 is 2 hours 6. And then you add 10% onto the 1 hour. Let's just call it 6.5 minutes to be safe. So 2 hours 6 minutes plus 6.5 is 2 hours 12.5. Let's just round it up because the half marathon's that bit further. So 2 hours 13 would be an estimate for your half marathon. That's just one system, one method you could utilise. The other problem with that is it's a very rough system. Obviously 2.1 to 2.2, especially if you're running slightly slower times, can be quite a big window of time. But again, if you're just starting out, a window is just a guide to what you should be aiming for. You can debunk the workings out if you're doing well on the race day, or if you feel slightly slower on race day. Again, it's not a big deal. Other ways, again, modern watches generally will have estimates nowadays. I know Coros definitely does. It can estimate my best efforts, my race paces, etc. I can only assume that Polar and Garmin and these other running watches do something similar. Drop in the comments if I'm wrong or if I'm right. I've never used anything other than a Coros and some other lower branded watches. Another way of finding out is if you go on the website VDOT Calculator. So Jack Daniels VDOT Calculator, not the whiskey, it's just the name of the kind of function engine. If you input a recent time, doesn't even have to be a race, just be a say best effort 3k or best effort 5k. You input that, and again it uses a kind of an algorithm and workings out. You can input more details, so if you've also done a 10 or a half, again it gives a bit more information, makes it a bit more accurate of a guess. You can also input your weekly mileage to again help the guesswork, but you input a recent time and it will guesstimate your again training efforts, so easy, threshold, interval pace, and it will also guesstimate your race times. On the back of that, again I put some shots on the screen as I'm talking, and again it's a rough estimate, but it is useful when you're starting out to give you a bit of a ballpark figure. So that's 3 different ways already. The 2.1, 2.2 multiplication method, if you own a watch, can do it for you on the app, or use the VDOT calculator as a guesstimate. And the last way of figuring it out, and the one I tend to use myself for just for preference really, there's no right or wrong, and again go and try a couple of these different ones out, see what you think's best and most accurate. But the one I like to use is just adding on a specific amount of time per k or per mile between the distances, because that way when you set off you know what pace you're running for every mile or every k, as opposed to just having the overall time estimate. Yes, you can just work back and divide that by 3.1 miles, 6.2 miles or 5, 10k, whatever, but I like to know exactly the difference between per k and per mile pace between the 5k PB, my 10k PB, etc. So again, these are rough windows of time that most runners will probably fall into. Some quicker runners will probably have a smaller window than these, and again newer and beginner runners might have a slightly larger window of time. But again, these are just guidelines take them with a pinch of salt and work with them. So yeah, the rough rules of thumb that I like to utilise. I'm not going to tell anyone what the 5k PB should be or whatever your pace should be, and it's irrelevant to every individual runner. These don't matter if you're running a 15-minute 5k or a 35-minute 5k or anything in between. What I like to do, so between my 5k pace, so say at the minute I run just below 20 minutes for 5k, so let's call it 20 minutes exactly for, again, for simple maths. That'll be exactly a 4-minute per k. I'll put a conversion on miles on the screen, but I run in k's. But if I'm running a 4-minute per k 5k, then I want to add on 5 to 10 seconds per k for my 10k. So my 10k should be roughly between 4:05 per k and 4:10 per k if I was running a 20-minute 5k. So yeah, so no matter what your 5, 10, half marathon or marathon times are, these are the rules of thumbs. So between 5 and 10, add on 5 to 10 seconds per k, 10 to 15 seconds per mile, roughly. Again, some people have slightly shorter gaps, some people might need slightly longer, bigger windows. And then between your 10k and your half marathon, add on an additional 10 to 15 seconds per k, or 15 to 23-ish seconds per mile. So again, on top of your 10k pace. And then finally, again, as a rough guide, just as a bit of a benchmark to go off, between your half marathon and marathon, add on 20 to 25 seconds per k, 33 maybe to 40 seconds per mile on top of your half marathon. Now again, pinch of salt, drop in the comments if yours are much tighter than that. I know there is some runners out there that can run within seconds of 5 and 10. So again, if you're running a 4-minute 5k, they can do a 4:03 10k. Me personally, them windows are roughly where I am in terms of adding time on. But again, yeah, as always, these are just my opinions. Drop in the comments if you disagree or have used a different system to work out your race paces, training paces, etc., and what they are in terms of the differentiation between your 5k pace, your 10k pace. Again, I know I'm stronger slightly at the shorter distances. My 5 and 10k PBs are, I feel, are stronger than my half marathon and my marathon PBs, and that's purely through experience. I've not run those longer distances as much. I'm not as strong as at those distances just yet. And again, just as a final note, these aren't where everyone should be. These are just, again, my opinions and my guidelines. I don't even fit into all these windows just yet. For me, these were not optimal, but if you were at your best at every distance, these are roughly where you would be, and it gives you a guide in terms of you setting off on a race, what pace it should be, so you don't go off too fast or too slow. It's just a guide, kind of guidance pace. Like I say, right now, the guidance is 5 to 10 seconds between 5k and 10k, and right now my 10k per k pace is 18 seconds slower per k. So I've got a lot of work to do, and that's because my 5k has improved, my 10k has improved a little bit, but I've got more work to do in that distance in terms of focus, which I will do towards the end of the year. So yeah, so I don't fit into all these windows. Again, I'm not preaching, I never do. This is just a bit of a guidance. But again, drop in the comments if you're more knowledgeable and you've got a better system to use. These are the ones that I've found in the past and I've utilised in the past, and will hopefully help those that have got no knowledge and want to maybe start working on different distances and want to move on up, and maybe haven't got a clue in terms of when I set off on a 10k, how fast should I set off at. These 4 systems will, one of them will hopefully help you. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there, finish this tempo run, get my breath back. I'll drop my continued half marathon weekly recaps, so look out for those. Happy running. Ask me anything in the comments if you wish to, and I'll see everyone on the next one.